lights are off and away they go.
Extremely loose. He's managed to hold on and they get
He
very
missed the
close.
pit complete. He's crazy
As I
stuff.
said, Freitas is on the grass on the infield before. He slides through, he tags Richard Eck.
Alright, Stefan Overgaard is behind the wheel of the GSRC Corvette, so let's do a lap around Montreal. Turn 1 is a big braking zone, so you'd think this is a great place to pass. Truth is, it's tough to make it work as the inside line into 1 becomes the outside of 2, and the car in front can easily chop you off at the hairpin if you try the outside of 1. Drivers are likely to get frustrated if they can't find other opportunities. As we blast down along the river, we approach 3 and 4. The wall at the exit here is just as dangerous as the notorious Wall of Champions. Then comes 5, and in the Corvette, you have to lift to make it around this fast, blind sweeper with absolutely no runoff on either side. Now we're into 6 and 7. Keep tight to the left to give yourself a better launch out of the second half. That wall at the exit is another place where an ill-handling car is likely to incur damage. From there, it's a short blast around the long curve of the backstretch. Keep the car to the left to set up for 8 and 9, and watch these white inside curbs. They look gentle, but they're tall and can unsettle your car. Treat them with respect or lose time waiting to get the power down. Now it's a fast trip toward the casino hairpin. Here is the only braking zone that doesn't lead to a chicane. And yet it's still not a straightforward deal. Go in too deep and your rival is going to get you with an over-under easily. In the high-powered Corvette, traction on exit is going to be critical. Thankfully, on this stretch, we don't have to needle through the nasty switchbacks that are all over the other side of the track. But this next chicane will test your mettle. Stefan is pretty brave here. Just watch how he clobbers this inside curb. Play with fire like that too much, and you'll wind up in the Wall of Champions. But we didn't this time, so now we've finished a lap around Montreal.
Robert Tinsey just
Welcome back to round 8 in the EnduroPro series here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. We apologize that we don't have picture for you, but we're going to bring you an audio broadcast of this race as we continue on and try to bring back picture as soon as we can. So, as you've missed just a bit of the race, let's go through each of the classes, give a quick recap, and give you the rundown of the top 3 guys. In C1, Dan, what has gone down so far?
So the C1 cars were pretty close off the start. Just a few notes that I have is Lars Conrad is now second ahead of Icarus Stefania. They're currently 1.3 seconds apart and getting closer together. Tinsey used the battle that between the 4 cars from second through to 5th to bring out a gap. His gap's now up to 3.8 seconds, and Matt Mucky has spun twice and has a damaged car as well.
So a lot of action has been going on there. Meanwhile, in C2, Brian, what's gone down?
Well, Manuel Sanchez, despite his a little bit slower qualifying times, has moved up to second place, and he's having a very good, consistent race right now as he's under attack by Richard Albert. But the main story right now is David DeRoche, our pole sitter, has somewhere around a 16-second lead this time by. He's been managing traffic very well, and he's doing everything he can to get out in front of the rest of the pack. So his strategy is paying off. He obviously has a good car today, and he's putting down some good laps. Also, Stefan Overgaard was a late entry to the race. He started in pit road, I do believe. He's moved up to 4th, and Richard Halliday's in 5th, so that's going to round out our field.
And then in C3, it's an unfamiliar face up at the front there, Dusty.
Definitely. Well, not so much unfamiliar, but certainly at the front, Patrick Pitchler, who's second place on the championship, and our pole sitter today, is still running out front ahead of our current leader, Joao Cardojo. So the surprising thing is Cardojo usually manages to get a really good run toward the beginning of the race, but Patrick Pitchler has been doing a really, really great job at maintaining a gap there up front. Now, there's still a lot to be said about, fuel strategy and stuff like that, and if Cardojo has some tricks up his sleeve there, maybe he's playing a little more conservative, to see if he can skip him in the pits later on, but we'll see. So behind Cardojo, in 3rd, we have Tom Valentini, who was running very close with Cardojo for a while, but it's hard to maintain that kind of focus on this track, so he has dropped back a little bit. Behind him, Andreas Allmansberger, and then Mertz Utzel, who unfortunately got a little loose and put his nose into a wall a little bit, had to pit to get a little bit of repairs, and he hasn't been able to stay with the rest of the drivers, so he's a lap behind in the C3 class. Now, one interesting thing I also do want to mention is it did look like Joao Cardojo might have brushed the wall about a lap or 2 ago, so I'm not really sure if he has any lasting damage from that, or if that might have just been cosmetic.
Well, since we don't have to worry about cameras switching around a little too much, let's go back to that C2 field because, Brian, I'm watching Stefan Overgaard and Richard Albright. These two have been very close for a few laps, it seems. And although Stefan seems to be dropping back as they head down the backstretch right now, it seems like Stefan has been trying to work his way steadily through this field.
Yeah, right now we got that HPD of, I believe it's Whitecalf behind Overguard, and I think that might be playing into why Overguard's backing down a little bit. Any moment that HPD's going to try and get around him because he doesn't want to be held up either. And we do know that the Corvette and the HPD have pretty comparable speeds going in a straight line, so it's very difficult to manage a battle in front of you and also have the HPD car trying to pass you as well. So he might be just trying to see what happens so they can play out and hopefully he doesn't lose this battle, because right now they've been going at it for quite a while. As we see right now, actually, the HPD is going to go down the inside, try to make a move, but unfortunately doesn't have the space to get into that chicane, so he's going to have to sit back for yet again another lap. It does look like Ramon Salas has retired from the race, Joe. I don't know what happened there, but yeah, we've had quite a bit of action early on in this race.
They are now currently hitting into the turn 1-2 complex, and it looks like Wyckoff isn't... Oh, and Wyckoff actually spins coming through turn 1. This car is currently sitting backwards on the track. There's nobody's coming, and he's getting it turned around and getting it going again. So no damage done, just a bit of bruised ego as he continues on. Let's get back to Stefan Overgaard, though, who now has nothing to worry about and trying to hold on to Richard Albert as they come through the fast right-hander of 5 and now braking for 6. But he doesn't seem to be closing the gap. I know he was much closer a little bit ago, and now they accelerate away down that backstretch once again, Brian.
Well, I do know he has a lot of pace, and he did practice quite a bit. As we know, he had some kind of family engagement earlier on today, so that was why he had a late entrance. But in the forums and knowing the driver and talking to him, we do know he put down a lot of laps in practice. So I do think he has the pace today. He has a good car, and it's just going to be a matter of time before he gets his rhythm back and really puts out the pressure on Richard Albert. Now, it's interesting at this track, as we saw in the lab guide earlier, it's very tight and tricky. So the Corvettes and the HPDs are kind of downforce dependent on a lot of these straights, but when you get into the lower speed corners, they're very tail happy and they're prone to spinning, as we saw Wyckoff with his spin earlier. So right now, I wonder if Overgaard knows this and he doesn't want to push too hard, because an accident here may cost you a race with these close walls.
Well, in the meantime, as I see a name dropping down the order of the timing sheets, I believe Daniel Benefield has some information on us for us as far as what happened there.
Not really, Joe. Romain Salyers, he has disconnected and he is falling down the timesheets. I went back to see if anything happened. He did have a little bit of damage on the right rear, but he came into the pits and left the car. I'm not sure if there was further damage to the suspension, but very similar damage to what I'm seeing on Lars Conrad's car at the moment. It looks like he's scraped the left rear coming out of one of the corners, just a little scrape, slightly bent on the left rear. Nothing major. I'm more concerned about Mark Mucky though, because he's got quite a bit of damage to the right rear of his car. His rear wings all bent up for about half the wing. So I'm concerned. I mean, he's obviously
and Mucky's actually turned
it.
around. Mucky is turned around on the track out of turn 7. He's going to have to do a 3-point turn, and I think he bonked it into the wall now. And now he's got drivers coming. That looks like one of the pure racing cars that squeezes on by. And now Mucky is able to get the car turned around and is going once again down the back straightaway towards turns 8 and 9. Before that happened, though, I actually did want to hop over to the lead of the C3 class, because Dusty, it looks like the battle is starting to be on for that.
Yeah, definitely. Cardozo has really started to hit his stride, and he's closing up on Pitchler now, just chipping away at that lead that Pitchler was able to make early on in this race, while Cardozo was sort of trapped behind Patrick Pitchler's teammate, in third place. So as we come back up to the front straight, you'll see here Cardozo gets an excellent launch out of that last chicane there, and really starts making up time up on the back of Pitchler, coming into the first chicane. He's closing up. Oh, but he gets extremely loose going through there, and it looks like he did not even lose any time there. We'll see if that caused him to heat up his tires. He's definitely not closing. He didn't get quite the line that he wanted through there to really close that gap yet.
And we even got a little bit of tire smoke from all the sliding that he was doing through that corner. I'm impressed that he held on, but now he's very much closed up, coming through 5 and into the braking of 6. Let's see if he can close up under braking. just a little bit. As you said, he seems to really try and favor that acceleration out of the corners. Doesn't quite get a good run coming out of 7, that right-hander that leads to the backstretch. So he's dropped back just a little bit, but he's definitely holding on. Now talk to us a little bit, Dusty, about the pit strategy of this race, because it sounds like in the C3 class, it's going to be just slightly different from normal.
Yeah, it's an interesting track because of all the very these tight chicanes. There's a lot of slowing down, a lot of accelerating from low speed, which means you're burning a lot more fuel at this track than you are anywhere else. So generally in one of these shorter endurance races at 90 minutes, the whole idea is you want to kind of conserve a bit of fuel and try to make it on only one pit stop. When I was speaking a bit with Joao Cardojo before the race, and he was saying that on this track, you lose so much time from trying to conserve that much fuel to do it on one stop that it's actually faster to do 2 stops. But the trick there is that since you don't need that much fuel on the last stop, conservation still plays a part. So you can see, since there's so much flexibility, you can see pit stops happening at any time of the race. We might even see drivers pitting within like the last 2 laps.
Meanwhile, in the HPD class, our second place driver, Lars Conrad, is having some trouble, Daniel.
Yes, Joe, he scraped the wall relatively heavily, actually, coming out of turn 4, which is the first chicane that you hit here at Montreal. And then on the same lap, in fact, he just did it again as he came through turn 4 again. And then coming out of turn 7, the second chicane, he scraped the wall on the left-hand side to try and even it up a bit, it seems. So now that HPD, pure racing HPD of Lars Conrad has damage on all 4 corners.
That's not going to help him around a track like this, I suppose, that has some very high-speed portions where the aerodynamics are probably going to count as far as keeping your car nice and sleek and efficient. So,
Joe, I need to jump in. It seems Stefan Overgaard messed up his braking point in turn 1. That is corner known as Senna going into the island hairpin, and he just went really late on the brakes and just managed to keep it off the grass. So he had a great save. Unfortunately, that will cost him quite a bit of time in the battle against Richard Albert. So he's going to drop back right now as we see him coming through 3, 4, 5, and 6. That complex of chicanes. And I'm starting to wonder if there's something wrong with his car, because the last couple of laps, despite being just a little bit faster than Richard Albert, he's had a few moments of slipping out and having some awkward lines. So we'll keep an eye on the situation, Joe, with Stefan Overgaard. But that was a huge game changer, as now Richard Albert has some breathing room.
And somewhere along there, I'm trying to figure out where Manuel Sanchez has lost time to these guys, and now Richard Albert has closed up to within what looks like, I believe, maybe 2 seconds, maybe less than a second, actually, on the back of Richard Albert's yellow Corvette. And now they're heading down towards this final chicane, towards the Wall of Champions. So it looks like the race could be on for second place here.
Yeah, I do believe it was when James Wyckoff, the HPD that spun earlier, was going through. He had some trouble getting around Manuel Sanchez, and that did cost both of them quite a bit of time. So that gave Richard Albert and I believe Stefan Overgaard a chance to get in the fight, as we see Stefan Overgaard just nearly missing that tire wall. Now all 3 of these guys seem to be getting closer and closer with every lap. I do think we will have quite the battle for second place later on in this race.
As we've watched Stefan Overgaard kind of struggle to keep up here, I'm wondering, with all these low-speed corners, Brian, is that going to be an issue for these Corvettes, spinning up the tires and really wasting them, as the race goes on? Do they need to conserve them?
Yeah, I would definitely think they would want us to conserve the tires here. Generally, we don't see the Corvette racing on a track this narrow and tight, so it might be something that Stefan Overgaard isn't completely comfortable with. We do know that he is very good on wide open tracks. We've seen all season long at like Laguna Seca and the like. So maybe this might be out of his comfort zone a little bit, or maybe he did get some damage earlier on. I don't know. But right now he is starting to make up just a little bit of time on the battle up in front of him. So it's hard to say at this point what's really going on with Stefan Overgaard's car.
So we'll keep half an eye on him. Let's hop back to the C3 class just a bit. Oh, and just behind them, actually, there's a lot of action going on. As Robert Tinsley was trying to lap Mark Muckey, he's got a sea of cars. Who is that in front of him? Richard Holiday in the black Corvette in the C2 class. He's now managing to get by him as they go down the backstretch and braking for turn 8. But there was just a gaggle of cars heading through the 4, 5, and 6 complex there for a second, and now they're starting to sort themselves out, although it looks like Tinsley is getting to go by the C3 leaders that I was just mentioning, and that would be João Cardojo in second and Patrick Pitchler in first.
Yeah, Robert.
Cardojo up until just then has really been closing up the gap on Patrick Pitchler. He was down within a few car lengths there, but then we've got really just like 3 classes all on the track at the same time. Coming through, and that has really, there are 2 HPDs and 1 Corvette in between Pitchler and Cardojo as they come through onto the front straight. So that has really pushed that gap wide open.
And it looks like one of them has managed to get by. Yes, Robert Tinsley is now past Patrick Pitchler, and so there's only the Corvette of Richard Holiday and the HPD of Mark Mucky between Cardojo and Pitchler, and they're not able to get by him at this point. In fact, it looks like Mucky is being held up by the Corvette of Holiday, and he's not been able to get his way by. We know that Mucky was damaged, Dan, but is it significant enough that he's not able to get by the C2 class?
Well, I think it'd mainly be aero damage, considering the way it went into the wall and the damage that he has on that right rear corner. Is like the wing's very much out of a line. It may not be affecting him that much, as in a sense that there might be some suspension damage in there as well, as Lars Conrad and Iker Estefania in the battle for second is coming up on this group now. And it looks like Mark Mucky's just waiting for these. Oh, in fact, Iker Estefania just made contact with Mark Mucky through the turn 10 hairpin. I'm not sure how heavy it was.
He had just clipped the inside of Mucky as he was trying to get by, and now he's going by on the right side down this long stretch before the final chicane and able to finally get past that car, and that has allowed Lars Conrad to start to stretch the gap, and it looks like Mucky is going to head into the pits now to try and get some of that damage repaired.
I'm looking at Iker Estefania as well, Joe. It looks like there isn't that much. In fact, it looks like he actually got away without any damage, did Iker Estefania, so very lucky indeed. It'll be interesting to see if how much of this damage Mark Mucky manages to get repaired.
Meanwhile, C3 is changing once again, Dusty, as Cardojo, instead of being on the attack, is now on the defense.
Second place and challenging him very strongly. So fire has really been lit in the belly of Tom Valentini. Get past one of his rivals here, or Cardojo is playing it a little conservative at this point. I'm not really sure, but he is hot on the tail. Very hard coming up onto this very fast back straight here. He's going to be within drafting distance. He might make an attempt for a pass. I don't see why he wouldn't. He's got the whole track here running right up. He was beside Cardojo and has now passed him for second place. And João Cardojo drops.
In fact, it looked like Cardojo braked a little bit early there. I think you're right that maybe he's just giving an opportunity, although it looks like Valentini went a little hot and just brushed the wall of champions, and he goes defensive coming towards turn 1 as Cardojo is looking on the inside line, but now he backs out of it. So it's definitely looking obvious as to what you mentioned earlier, Dusty, with Cardojo really not being super aggressive, and although then he proves me wrong, as now he pulls the switch back on Valentini through turn 2 and backs out of it yet again as they brake for turn 3, this 3-4 chicane that has that wall right on the right side on the exit. They both give it plenty of berth, and Cardojo is still right on the back, and they've got, who is that behind them? That is Jacob Groth in the HPD that is closing up behind these guys and could throw a wrench in things unless he's able to get by down the backstretch as they scream towards turn 8.
good. That puts Joao Cardoso a step back as far as his control of the situation. So if he wants to run his own pace, he's got to go back up into that second position, because if he just sort of drops down to the team, then over time that's going to slow him down more and more, and that small gap that he coming back on the back stretch, he was close in, same sort of thing. He's jumping back up into second ahead of him. This last hairpin, now back in second place and in control of the situation.
And Valentini was very squirrely coming out of that final chicane, but thankfully was able to keep it under control. That lost him just a bit of time, but once again, that draft has pulled him in. Now, I was curious to know if the draft was really going to have an effect on these cars, and it does seem to be a bit of a back and forth between them as far as who is where coming into some of these longer stretches, Dusty.
Yeah, definitely. On this track, but there's one, and it's definitely very long. So if you can be tucked in behind somebody coming out of that hairpin, the draft will definitely pull you right around, and you can get a pass just about every time. You have to be close enough, because the zone at the straightaway, so if you're not completely past the person by the time you get there, that can spell a lot of trouble.
And we're going to see if we see a repeat once again, because now as they head through the hairpin, Joao Cardoso is the one in front. Tom Valentini is the trailing car in the blue Pure Racing McLaren. It looks like he's close enough to get the draft again. Now, is he going to try and make this move yet again, or is he going to decide to just hold back and hold on to the draft of Joao Cardoso and try to save some fuel? It looks like this is the case, as now Valentini has finally wised up and is not... Oh, in fact, he's heading into the pits.
Unfortunately, I've lost my monitor here, so I can't see the action.
And in fact, both Patrick Pitchler and Tom Valentini seem to be employing team tactics here, as both have headed into the pits. We are currently about halfway through the race, so exactly halfway point. These guys have decided to try and make it. They must be trying to stretch this all the way to the middle. Yes, in fact, all three teammates, as Andreas Allmensberger is now with them in the pit stop, and they're all filling up all the way to the brim as they are taking a long time stationary trying to fuel the cars. It looks like Pitchler is going to be the first one off, as you would expect. He was the first one in, leading the way. Meanwhile, up ahead of them, Joao Cardoso has not stopped into his pit yet, so he must have been getting slightly better mileage than these guys, which could be an advantage that Dusty mentioned just a bit earlier. So Joao Cardoso continues on. Patrick Pitchler emerges from the pits in second. Andreas Allmensberger emerges in what looks like... It looks like Andreas Allmensberger actually emerged ahead of Tom Valentini. So Allmensberger takes over the third spot. Tom Valentini falls down to fourth after pit stops have finished. So things have shaken up. We followed the C3 class for a while. Let's hop back up to C1. What is going in that class currently, Daniel?
Nothing major. But when Lars Conrad and Iker Estefania went through that big group of traffic before with Marc Marquis, there were the leaders in C3, Joao Cardoso, Pitchler, Allmensberger, Valentini. Conrad pulled out a good 3 to 4 seconds over Iker Estefania. He used the traffic very well to his advantage, and and not only has he pulled the gap out, he's maintained that gap. Mind you, Iker Estefania was half a second faster last lap. The damage on Lars Conrad's car doesn't look too bad, so it looks like he's is able to run at his normal pace. It'll be interesting to see how this all ends up come the end of the race.
And we have to apologize that unfortunately we don't have Dusty for a moment. As he mentioned, he has some technical issues. We'll try to get him back as soon as we can. In the meantime, we will keep you abreast on the C3 class as things develop. Let's go to C2 just briefly, though, because it looks like things are still pretty close for that second spot.
Yeah, actually things were very close, a lot closer than they appear. Right now, Rodbert Tinsey had a scary moment coming through the island hairpin. He's in the HBD class. Sorry to jump real quick, but the three of these guys, Manuel Sanchez, Richard Albert, the 900 driver, and Stefan Overgaard have been running very close. And it just seems like every time anyone's ready to finally make a move into one of these chicanes to outbrake one another, another bit of HPD traffic comes through and breaks up the mess. So I think the next overtaking chance we're actually going to see is coming down pit road, which will be in the next 5 to 10 minutes. So Joe, not a lot going on as far as development, but this battle has been going on for quite a while. So very conservative and good driving from all three of these drivers.
Yes, and please jump in if something happens over there, because right now João Cardoso has hopped into the pits and is getting his fuel stop done. I'm going to keep half an eye on our other C3 drivers. Patrick Pitchler, where is he? He's heading down towards the final chicane on that long flat-out stretch towards that pit entry, and see if he can gain anything and try and get by João Cardoso, although he was ahead of João Cardoso before the pits. So if Cardoso comes out, he will have effectively short fuel just a little bit better than Patrick Pitchler. Pitchler is now heading down the front stretch toward the start-finish line, and he has passed João Cardoso, who's still sitting stationary. Where is Andreas Allmensberger? Allmensberger is just coming through the final chicane right now, and now João Cardoso is heading out of the pit lane. He is going down that slow portion on the pit limiter. Where is Allmensberger? Allmensberger might actually be able to jump him. In fact, he will. Allmensberger now goes by into turn 1. He's got to get through this next complex, though, so it's going to be very close, and they are very right, almost side by side, but Allmensberger is ahead of Cardoso in second place, so Cardoso has actually lost some time, it looks like, in the pit stops. So, C3 has changed. Patrick Pitchler currently leads. Andreas Allmensberger is in second, and João Cardoso is in third, followed by Tom Valentini just a little ways back in fourth. So, just a bit of a shakeup in this C3 class, and Cardoso is trying to hold on those cold tires. He's only just a few car lengths back from Allmensberger, but his strategy right now doesn't seem to be working. We'll have to see, as Dusty mentioned earlier, to see whether the fuel strategy will come into play in these final few laps. So, let's go back to that C2 battle and see what things are standing at right now. And it looks like Stefan Overgaard has lost a bit.
Actually, Joe, he did dive into pits the last time around, and it was a very intense, kind of over-dramatic pit entry. He went full speed in. I don't even think he hit the brakes until the last second. Unfortunately, he left the battle, but maybe it was a good thing, because right now we see these two HPDs coming through and slowing down Manuel Sanchez and Richard Albert. So he might have actually gotten himself some open space on the road. It'll be a very short time if there is open space, but right now, yeah, that's a good strategy call. I think he was getting held up a little bit by Richard Albert battling with Manuel Sanchez, and he wanted to try his hand, maybe going down an alternate strategy.
Meanwhile, we do have some HPDs pitting. It sounds like Mark Mucky, actually this would be his third stop, if I'm not mistaken so far. Is that correct, Dan?
It's his second stop, and he has left the car, so I wouldn't be surprised if Mark Mucky is actually retiring from the race.
Obviously had enough views from these very close concrete walls. I'm sorry, go ahead.
João Cardoso just scraped the wall coming out of turn 4. Coming out of the first chicane at turn 4, João Cardoso scraped the wall. He's very close to Andreas Allmensberger at the moment, but his rear wing's a little damaged at the moment, Joe.
Now, Dusty mentioned he did that a little bit earlier in the race, so it's interesting. João Cardoso does seem to be stretching the car to its limits in a few places, even though he supposedly might be saving fuel. And he's now actually going to get out of the way, as I believe that is Jacob Groff now going by both of them into the hairpin, and he is not going to bother this battle too much, although he holds up Allmensberger just a little bit. This could be an opportunity for João Cardoso, as now he is within the draft of Allmensberger, heading down this long stretch toward the final chicane.
Allmensberger will have a little bit of a draft though from Jacob Groff. I'm not sure if it'll be enough to stay ahead of Cardoso. It looks like it is. I wonder if this damage is actually affecting Cardoso, because he's dropping back in the draft in a straight line. So I reckon this damage is affecting his straight line speed.
And this could be critical, as João Cardoso takes that final chicane much faster than Allmensberger and closes the gap back up. But if he does have that aero damage, that's going to hurt his mileage, and that could come into play in his strategy as the race progresses.
I wonder if Cardoso is just saving, like pushing the car to the edge, but saving fuel. What I mean by that is that he's keeping, instead of, he may look like he's over pushing the car through the chicanes. But I think what he may actually be doing is keeping as much momentum as possible, so he doesn't have to use as much fuel to gain his speed.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Just let the the scrubbing of the tires burn off the momentum, and just try and carry it as much as he can through these corners, just to kind of save. And he's doing a very good job holding on to the back of Andreas Almensberg. He is still within a few car lengths of that blue and black pure racing car as they now head into the hairpin. We are nearly an hour into this race. We're about 50 minutes in at this point, and we're going to hold on this battle just a little bit longer, but I want to hop over to C2 because I did see some C2 cars hopping into the pits. And once again, Cardozo slow on the accelerator. I think you're right that he is just trying to save on the straights here and then make it back up in the corners as Cardozo loses ground and then gains it right back up under braking as they fly through this final chicane, and once again just takes it so much faster than Almensberger. So it looks like it's going to be stationary as they are, and maybe he's lifting in the draft of that blue and black pure racing machine, continuing on into lap 32. Let's hop over to the C2 class as a few cars have hopped into the pits. Brian, what have you got for us?
Right now, it looks like Stefan Overgaard's pit stop might have been a little bit longer because Richard Albert's last stop left him quite a bit ahead of him when he came out. So those two guys both had varying lengths and pit stops. Manuel Sanchez is yet to go in, but he's running in second place right now. Still quite a ways back from David DeRoche. I don't think anybody's going to catch David today unless something catastrophic happens. I did not see if David or Richard have pitted yet, but they're approaching rapidly the pit window in which they will need to go in for fuel and tires, as we mentioned before. So within the next 2 or 3 laps, I think everyone will have gone through their pit cycles and we'll see some battles forming up again. Joe?
In fact, it looks like Jacob Roth is just exiting the pit now as he comes out just behind Richard Albert, who is sitting in third place, what I'm seeing on the timing screens at the moment. So our current top 3 in each class, in case you are a little bit confused: Robert Tinsey is leading in C1, Lars Conrad is sitting in second, and Iker Estefania is sitting in third. Meanwhile, David DeRoche is in first in our C2 class. Manuel Sanchez is in second and currently in the pits, so is David DeRoche, and Richard Albert is sitting in third. Meanwhile, in C3, Patrick Pitchler is leading the way with Andreas Almensberger in second and João Cardozo in third, guys.
Yeah, it looks like David DeRoche and Manuel Sanchez have made their pit stops now, so it's going to be interesting to see where Richard Albert is. That was a mouthful. When he comes back around and everyone's had a chance to stop. I do think Manuel Sanchez is faster than Richard Albert, and Stefan Overgaard might have been caught up in the HPD traffic, so unfortunately that really good battle we had earlier on has been broken up for the time being. But with the speed and quality of these Corvette drivers, I would really hope that these battles get going again.
Yeah, things have certainly been interesting today. Despite the small field, we only had 17 cars start this race. So these guys have been putting on quite a show. Meanwhile, let's go back to João Cardozo, who is right behind Andreas Almensberger yet again. Don't think he's going to be trying anything, Daniel. I think what we have been calling earlier seems to be the right thing, as even though Cardozo probably could have been making some moves, he really hasn't been too aggressive. But what this has done has allowed Tom Valentini to close up on both of them.
Yeah, I was just looking at that, and he may want to get a move on made João Cardozo with Tom Valentini closing in on at the rate he is. Not sure if he'll be able to get the draft this lap, but he's definitely getting closer lap by lap. I mean, last lap Valentini was at a full 1.3 seconds faster than Almensberger and 1.4 seconds faster than João Cardozo. So he's definitely got the pace, has Tom Valentini.
And we seem to be seeing 2 very different strategies between drivers here, because Patrick Pitchler, as he leads, he's got a large gap. Right now I'm looking at it, and it looks to be this time by about, looks like he's got 8 plus 15, that would be 23 seconds, 23-second gap on the track. So he seems to be, doing the run like hell method, where maybe he's going to make 2 stops here, one very briefly at the end. Now, what this means is we've got to pay attention to what the bogey time is on pit lane here, Daniel, and maybe you'll have to go back and see how long these guys were stationary to give us an idea of how much time they're going to lose in the pits here, because these guys, João Cardoso, all he has to do is stay within that bogey time, and he could be challenging Patrick Pitchler at the end of this race, assuming that Pitchler is going to have to make another stop. Now, I see that we might have Dusty back here. Dusty, do you have visual?
Yeah.
All right. Well, what you've missed is during pit stops, Andreas Allmensberger actually managed to jump João Cardoso and move him down into third, while Tom Valentini is down into fourth. However, all three of these guys, Allmensberger, Cardoso, and Valentini, are currently sitting second, third, and fourth, right a line astern as they head down the backstretch toward that final chicane.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like Tom Valentini is going to be in fourth much longer if he's driving. He was just up against the bumper of that hairpin, and even here on the front straight, he's closing it up even more. These guys are all about the same length away from each other here in second, third, and fourth, going into the first hairpin. Coming out there, doesn't quite have the launch at the end of the straight to make it. And Valentini is now right up into the back. Here in the C3 class, which is interesting. We have 4 cars in the C3 class that are fighting for position.
But what we've seen, what you missed is, and now we've got a very defensive Allmensberger who's all the way to the inside as they head towards 8, and they've got an HPD behind them. I'm trying to figure that's Lars Conrad, and he makes just slight contact. It's just contact with João Cardoso coming through turn 8 and 9, and both were able to continue, but Cardoso actually had to go through the grass, and that has given a slowdown penalty, and this is going to allow Tom Valentini to get past Cardoso before they get to the final hairpin. That was a very aggressive move, although I think this was all instigated by Allmensberger going defensive into that corner, and Allmensberger is actually just getting passed by Lars Conrad, who's now going by, and he was actually, I believe these guys are both teammates, although they're in different classes. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Man, Cardoso has to be steaming there because of that. It's just, all you can see was blue right now.
Sorry to cut in, but Lars Conrad has a black flag from second place for avoidable contact. But I don't. That's very harsh, Mario. I feel Lars Conrad was at the inside of João Cardoso. He was gonna clear all 3 McLarens by the straight, but then his own teammate Andreas Allmensberger came across and defended, and then ended up blocking his own teammate.
Yeah, it's a tough call, although I have to say that, there's still quite a bit of race left, so Conrad probably could have been a little bit more patient there, and now he's paying the price, because right behind him is Iker Estefania heading down the backstretch, so Iker is just going to have this spot easily. We also have some other information going on in C2. Brian, what happened to David DeRoche?
I have no idea. I've been going through the replays looking for some kind of slowdown penalty or maybe a black flag, and I had not seen any reason for him to drop so far back. So Manuel Sanchez is now the race leader, followed by Richard Albert, who's in second, and then David DeRoche is quite a ways back, and he's in third. I have no logical explanation for it.
I'm sorry, our race leader in C3, I just looked back up. Pitchler was just turned around on the track and in the wall.
And it doesn't look like he's lost the position, though. Let's. How much damage does he have, Dusty? I can't quite see from my angle.
I'm looking at a replay right now. He gets loose coming out of the last chicane out of the front straight, taps the tire barrier. It looked like he tapped it pretty light. He might have a straight car, but he bumps into it a little bit when trying to turn around. Man, he had a huge lead to be able to take that time to get turned back around. But I'm really curious if he's going to still be able to maintain his pace. If he can, he might still be able to hold on to the position, but it's hard to say right now.
Well, one thing we need to figure out, Dusty, is we as we've been watching, we think that Patrick Pitchler is trying to make this a two-stop strategy and just go as fast as he can in this period. So at this point, he needs that gap, we think, to be able to get ahead at the end of the race. So if we can, we're going to try and figure out what the bogey time is for pit stops, how much he's going to lose, because Cardozo and possibly Almensberger and Valentini, depending on if they're employing a pit strategy of one stop as well, could pass him before the end of this thing. So I don't know if you have time to maybe go back and give us a feel for what that is as far as the time. Actually, I'm sorry, it looks like Daniel is going to go back and get that for us right now and get us informed on that. But in the meantime, I do see that Valentini is still right on the back of his teammate Almensberger, and that is second and third between them, with Almensberger in second. Things have been really shaken up all around in this. And just a bit of side information, Lars Conrad did serve his stop and go, has been through the pits, and is now sitting in third and has a he's sitting in fourth. Jacob Groff has gotten past him, so Lars Conrad has lost 2 positions from that penalty.
Yeah, and an interesting thing about the pit strategy for the C3 class, talking to for the race, from my understanding, probably all of these guys strategy, but because of that, there's a lot of variation that they have as far as when they're going to take their pits. So I wouldn't be surprised if all of these guys do 2 stops, but some of them time by doing it. Maybe that was the case with Patrick Pitzler.
Well, one thing that you missed while you were gone, Dusty, is that all 3 of the Pure Racing guys pit at almost exactly halfway. Now, João Cardozo went 2 laps longer than these guys. So he has effectively a little bit more leeway than they do as far as trying to make it to the end.
Yeah, well, I mean, what Raul was saying is that the trick is just trying to make that last stop as small and as fast as possible. Lose too much time trying to conserve so much fuel to make it on one stop. So then it's just about trying to keep it as short as possible. So by being a little conservative up front, staying out a couple more laps, it means his second stop is just going to be that much shorter. So he might be able to make up a second or 2 stop, but if he doesn't really hustle, that's not going to be enough.
Oh, and we've got a change in the C2 class as David DeRoche just overtook Richard Albert for the second place. Was that planned? Because it looked like Albert actually pulled off to the side there, Brian.
Yeah, I don't know the make of it. I do know when the HPDs were coming through the last lap, it looked like Richard Albert made a little bit of a mistake, and from that moment on, David DeRoche was relentless. He just put every pressure that he could on Richard Albert. I'm wondering if Richard just said, enough of this, I want to finish this race in one piece, and just moved aside. But right now, we have David DeRoche move up into second place, and now he's going to try and hunt down Manuel Sanchez. Now, we do know David DeRoche has a very fast car today. At one point, his lead was up to almost 20 seconds over the rest of the Corvette field. So now it's just a game of waiting and hunting, and we are going to see a battle here for the lead at some point in this race.
Right now, the gap is about 10 to 11 seconds between Sanchez and DeRoche, and this could be critical because Sanchez is currently leading the championship, so Sanchez is going to want to take that W and start to extend his gap. DeRoche isn't directly challenging him. He is currently 60 points back in the championship from Sanchez, and DeRoche is sitting in 5th. But, you know, that's going to help, obviously, everybody else and DeRoche himself to try and close that down, as we still have 4 races left to go in this championship before things are all said and done. So DeRoche does have something to weigh in this. Meanwhile, we do have some information on that pit bogey from Daniel Benefield. Daniel, what's it looking like?
It looks like about 30 to 35 seconds, maybe up to 40, depending how well you stop on your marks in the box. But that's roughly how long it will take you to, well, I guess, rotate through the pit lane. Also, I hope Lars Conrad can still get a podium from this race. I mean, he's normally not up top 3 or top 2, and I'm really impressed with his pace in this race. So I'm hoping he can get back up there. I think it was just a bit unlucky that he got that penalty for unavoidable contact, to be honest.
Well, he's still got time to try and make it up. We are an hour and 4 minutes into the race at this point, so we have less than half an hour left to go for these guys to finish. Just a heads up for people who are paying attention to the pit strategy in the C3 class. Right now, Patrick Pitchler has just under a 20-second lead over his teammate Tom Valentini, sitting in second. So, depending on what he's trying to do and what everybody else is trying to do, this could play out very interesting, or it could play out that everybody's doing the same thing and Patrick Pitchler has this one in the bag. But as we've seen, it's very easy to make mistakes around here, Dusty, and he could, any of these guys could throw it away in a heartbeat.
Yeah, we've seen in the past, in the one race that Joao Cardoso wasn't out in front, he did manage to pull it back right at the end through, careful driving, planning, and pit strategy. So, he might have something up his sleeve here, but at the same time, he's also had a couple wrenches thrown in it too. With obviously, having a car run into you is never a good thing in a race. But the 2-second penalty that came from that too, for something that definitely wasn't his fault, that slows him back, and now he's dropped back. He's out of the aerodynamic advantage of being close to his other competitors, and he's dropping back a little bit. So you never know. I mean, Pitchler's got a really big gap up there, but that could well. I'm rooting for him. I'll just say that.
Well, I'll say this, that one thing that you also missed, and if you're just joining us, our listeners right now, Joao Cardoso does have a slight bit of damage on his car from contact made in turn 4 earlier in the race. And now I'm not sure if he also had a bit more damage done by that contact with Lars Conrad that was just a few laps ago. So he could be struggling aerodynamically at this point, and that could explain why he's dropping back just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the lap times. Pitchler, even after his little contact with the wall there, is still maintaining probably about the best lap times of this group here. I mean, they're all pretty close, but these things add up in small ways, and I think it's starting to affect him.
Definitely a psychological game is racing as these guys continue on. Once again, Robert Tinsey is leading the C1 class. Iker Estefania is in second. Jacob Groth is in third. Manuel Sanchez is in first in the C2 class. David DeRoche is trying to run him down in second. And Richard Albert is sitting in third. And the C3 class, as we said, Patrick Pitchler is leading by a handy gap with Tom Valentini in second and Andreas Allmensberger making it an all pure racing podium right now in the C3 class. So, as things progress, speaking of that C2 and David DeRoche trying to close him down, this time by, what is the gap looking like between these two guys, Brian?
It's still a long ways off, Joe. I haven't gotten a clear calculation. I do know that David is running with a lot of fire right now. We see him coming inches from the wall every time around through these tricky chicane sections. And I don't know if he actually has enough now, because it seems like the more and more he pushes, the more and more mistakes he makes, and sooner or later those HPDs are going to come back around the track and slow him down once again. So I think David really needs to focus and just focus on making the right moves and not getting that back end out, because I definitely have seen his tail sliding all about throughout the last 2 laps.
Well, I'm looking at the timing sheets, and it looks like Sanchez has about a 7-second gap over David DeRoche at this point. So it has been closing down, because it was about 10 or 11 seconds earlier on between these two. So I think DeRoche is actually closing in on him. However, Daniel pointed out something. I just want this to be said on air, just because I don't think we'll get a chance to say it again. What did you notice, Daniel?
That Patrick Pitchler and Andreas Allmensberger are in the pit lane. Now, this is obviously part of their strategy. This is the second stop, which is unusual for a 90-minute race, because we normally only see the one stop. But as Dusty said earlier, the higher fuel per kilometer here makes it a 2-stop race. Interesting though, only remember in the first starts all 3 pure racing cars came in together. Tom Valentini stayed out. I just want that to be known, as it could be a cross strategy between the team here.
Yeah, it's very interesting development. That actually wasn't what I was referring to. One thing that we had mentioned as we have a little chat that we can communicate with off air, that Daniel pointed out that before those pit stops, João Cardoso was effectively the last car running in the C3 class, which I never thought we'd hear. But as far as things developing, yeah, Tom Valentini's still staying out, and he's got just a little bit of a gap to Cardoso. So if these two are running the same strategy, that could be the case. Oh, and I'm sorry, Patrick Pitchler was having a bit of trouble with, that was Richard Albert just heading by him through turn 9 and 8 for just a moment there, but he was able to slip on by as he's got Corvettes now streaming by him. But it looks like Pitchler currently sitting in third out of these guys and trying to run that gap down. Now he's going to be able to burn fuel just a little bit easier. Whoa, as Stefan Overgaard has a hairy moment just beside coming out of the hairpin. I'm not sure if he got a wheel off in the grass, but Stefan Overgaard was under acceleration, just squirming back and forth next to the car of Patrick Pitchler. But now they're both safely heading down towards that final chicane. And hopefully Stefan Overgaard will be able to overtake Patrick Pitchler in that C3 class there. So things are progressing, and it's developing very interestingly here, Dusty.
Yeah, we had a pretty small grid today, and based on some of the stuff that was happening previous in the season, wasn't quite sure how things were going to pan out. Now, of course, with the cars that we do have here today, we definitely have a group of the most dedicated and passionate drivers that I've pretty much seen. So it's great. We've got a really interesting, it might be one of the most exciting finishes in the C3 series throughout this entire season.
Yeah, definitely one of the most unpredictable, although we did have some good races. I will say, I know you mentioned earlier that we didn't have a challenge for Cardoso in any other races except for Sebring, and I will say that at Daytona, if you'll remember, Paulo Martins made it unsure until the very final laps when finally Paulo had to stop in for another splash and dash. We thought that maybe Paulo was able to win it and did not have enough fuel. So we have seen cases where Cardoso was under threat, but like you said, it's always been by strategy, and that seems to be Cardoso's strong point. So I wonder if he's pulling a trick on some of these pure racing guys.
Yeah, I mean, when I was saying earlier, he was talking to me that you might see cars pitting all the way up until the last couple laps of the race, so they can take a very, very short final stop. And when reading that, I sort of got the impression that that was a little bit of a hint. And I really wouldn't be surprised if that's actually what his strategy is going to be. He's going to run it a little more conservatively than these other guys. You know, you see him dropping back a little bit right now. That might not be because, you know, he's lost his groove or he's got damage. We know that he's very good at calculating these, the gas on the fly during the race. So he might just be like, I've been held up by these drivers a little bit. That means I'm using a little less gas than I thought I would have otherwise. And, so he's going to pit all, 2 laps before the end of the race, get a super, super fast final pit and jump as many people as he possibly can. Another thing I'm kind of wondering if he's being held up by traffic a lot more than he expected to, that's going to reduce his fuel utilization in general. So there's maybe a chance that that he's done a little bit of math in his head and realized that he might actually be able to do this on one stop.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was suspecting with the way he's been hanging back and not really challenging most of this race. Meanwhile, we have some information on Lars Conrad. Daniel, what you got?
I think Lars Conrad is a little bit fired up, Joe. The last 4 laps straight, he's dipped into the 27s, and I mean, in clean air you can do that easily, but with a slightly damaged car with traffic, that's pretty impressive. So Lars Conrad is absolutely flying at the moment up to the back of Jacob Groff. I reckon you can get Jacob Groff before the end of this race.
Now remember, Lars Conrad is sitting 4th right now, but he qualified 3rd, and we were commenting earlier on that usually he's a bit of a back marker in the HPDs, so this track seems to suit him, Daniel. He seems to be a little bit hooked up here.
I can understand why. I love this track as well. It's an awesome track. It's probably not the best for multi-class since it's so narrow, but I mean, I know a few guys that this is some of their best track. Some of the guys where this is their best track. I think David DeRoche this is his best track as well. But it's an awesome track, particularly when you get it right. If you get it wrong, it's horrible to you. But you get it right, and you can walk away with a massive smile on your face.
And speaking of David DeRoche, last time by at the line, it looks like it was about 5 seconds difference. We're going to see in just a bit what it's going to be as we're waiting for Sanchez and DeRoche to come across the line. We're going to have to wait for both of them to really get an inkling of what the gap is, as now Manuel Sanchez screams down the front stretch towards turn 1, crosses the line. DeRoche now comes by after him, and it looks like it is 3 seconds now. So he chopped about 2 seconds off that last time by, Brian. I think DeRoche is on a charge. We've got 15 minutes left in this race. He might be able to do this.
Yeah, Joe, but remember at this track, catching him's one thing, passing him's going to be another. And right now, if you go on board with them, every once in a while, you can see Manuel Sanchez and David DeRoche's sights. So you definitely know that the scent of the battle is coming back, and now he's looking at his chops, anticipating a good fight. So, like you said 15 minutes ago, as long as nothing significant happens with different class traffic or an incident, we'll have a good battle here. It's definitely getting very close.
Now, I'm very curious what the lap time differences are between Conrad and Roth in the C1 class there, Daniel, because we don't have too much time left, and it looks like there's a fair gap between these guys. So, I mean, is it looking like he's going to be able to run him down in time?
Oh, ooh. In fact, I was just watching last Conrad, and he got very close to his teammate again in the form of Andreas Almersberger this time. I'm not sure if they made contact, though. It didn't look like it. I mean, if he can do 27s, I reckon Lars Conrad can catch Jacob Groff, but he's having a bit of a bad run in traffic the last lap or two, has Lars Conrad, and he's dropped back a little, so I think he has the pace to do it, as long as he has the luck more than pace.
And as we're looking at gaps, it looks like between Pichler and Cardozo, the gap right now is about 10 seconds between them, but they're getting ready to come by the line again, and that is going to change. But the significant one, I think, is between Valentini and Cardozo, because Valentini, we're not sure if he's employing the same strategy that Cardozo is or not, because he hasn't stopped yet, as opposed to his teammates, like his teammates have, Dusty.
Yeah, I mean, you know, she's just probably they're mixing it up a little bit. He's going to stay out as long as he possibly can and take a really short final pit. What I'm really curious about at the moment is I'm just sort of postulating here. If Cardozo is trying to be conservative and pull off a one pit race, I'm looking at his lap times right now, and he's running like almost 2 seconds slower per lap than Patrick Pichler. So based on the number of laps, since Pichler has done his final pit, and if we figure that Cardozo has done his final pit, that puts them just about beside each other for the checkered flag. So he might not have enough gap to really make it work with that one pit strategy, and I'm really, really curious if that's going to play off.
And meanwhile, David DeRoche is starting to really close up. In fact, we can see them in the same screen now, as he is less than 2 seconds behind the leader of Manuel Sanchez, Brian.
I was getting really excited. I totally forgot we didn't have a picture right now, but this is a very close battle. I've been watching him on board from David DeRoche's car the last 2 laps, and that McLaren that was on the right-hand side coming across the start-finish line did everything he could to not slow down, because he doesn't want to give up time, remember, but both of those drivers just shot right past him without a care in the world, and now the hunt is on. So David DeRoche is drafting Manuel Sanchez down in the turn 9. This is becoming quite the battle, as right now we see David DeRoche takes a very late braking mark. He is right on the bumper of Manuel Sanchez. Sanchez has to go defensive now, or he is going to lose the lead. right now, David DeRoche definitely has the faster car. Is he going to try to look inside? It looks like he's going to peek inside. Does he get him? I don't think he will. Manuel Sanchez is going to chop across in the hairpin. He's going to get a better exit as well, as David DeRoche takes a little bit of a bobble coming out. But now David DeRoche is in the advantage. We have a very long back straight here coming into the chicane. Very, very good drafting zone for the Corvettes. It's where they are the strongest on the track, as right now Manuel Sanchez is going to have to take yet again another defensive line. He breaks a little bit earlier as we come into this chicane. Manuel Sanchez gets a better release through the chicane. He's going to get to the lead one more lap, Joe.
And he actually didn't go defensive into that final chicane, so he felt safe enough, but I don't think he's going to be next time if DeRoche can get a better exit than he did. That was really critical, and kudos to Sanchez, because usually in the past we've seen DeRoche is very good under acceleration. Now he's closed up. He's only 2 car lengths back. They're heading towards turns 3 and 4, and they've got the HPD of Iker Estefania behind them, who's staying very patient, as he has to wait for these guys, losing time constantly, but he's going to want to blast by soon, as they're now heading towards 6 and 7. Another slow little chicane, a left and then a right, and then on to the back stretch. Is Iker going to be able to blow by them now? It looks like no. He's still waiting. Now he pulls out to the side. He's looking on the inside. He's going to have to outbrake them, it looks like. And he does dually into turn 9 and slips on by. Now he separates these two and is just going to give a little bit of a gap to Manuel Sanchez to start to pull away.
Iker hesitated just a little bit, and that's why it took so long to get past David DeRoche, but nonetheless, everyone got through safely, so that was a good racecraft kind of move there. David DeRoche now has had to draft to the back of Iker Estefania for a little bit as he tries to figure out how is he going to make up that time that he lost just now to Manuel Sanchez. Very fortunately, though, David does have a fast car today. He has been faster than Manuel Sanchez, so this should just be a quick little, hopefully the traffic gets out of the way and we get back to fighting, because the time is running down. But at the same time, there's enough time that we can get this battle going again. So very good, interesting stuff here, Joe.
They are now on the front stretch, and Iker is looking on the inside coming towards turn 1, but he backs out of it. He just doesn't seem to have the straight line speed to try and get by this Corvette of Manuel Sanchez, and he is struggling to try and find a way past. Now he's trying to out-accelerate him coming down towards turn 3. He's on the inside this time, and this could be the pass to finally get out of these guys' ways, and he holds up Sanchez just a little bit, allowing DeRoche to get back on the back of the C2 leader, and now the fight is on between Sanchez in first and DeRoche in second as they head into turn 6.
Yeah, as we were saying earlier in the race here, Joe, the HPD is a lot comparable to the speed of the Corvettes down long straights. Where it excels is in the corners, and with the battle going on with the Corvettes, Iker really couldn't use the speed and the downforce to his advantage, so that's why it took so long. But now the battle's back on right now as we see David DeRoche getting right on the back of Manuel Sanchez. He must be huge in the mirror of Manuel Sanchez. So back to you, Joe. We're going through another live battle here.
Yeah, and they're coming towards the hairpin now, under braking. DeRoche doesn't quite close up too much. If he could just get the power down this time, he could have. And it looks like he's got it this time. He does much better than Manuel Sanchez. He's within the draft. The question is it going to be enough for him to make an attempt? It's very hard to go side by side through this last chicane. He's not closing in quick enough, so I don't think he's going to make an attempt this time by.
Oh, he looks on the inside right now. It's just going to be a little scare tactic that's playing mind games with Manuel Sanchez. Smartly, though, he does pull back behind, so he's very frustrated. You can tell he's very hungry. Every turn we see him peeking in and out, trying to see if he can get Manuel Sanchez to make a mistake, and so far Manuel's been unfazed by every attempt. So Manuel is definitely showing his veteran skills on his racecraft and doing everything he can to keep David DeRoche behind him.
Now heading towards turn 3, DeRoche still within about a car length and a half, and he closed up right on the bumper under braking through that corner. But the key here with these cars, I think, Brian, is going to be getting the power down out of the exit. It's really going to have to be focusing on getting acceleration out of the corners to not leave yourself vulnerable, because there's so many heavy braking zones that if you want to, you could stick it in there.
Absolutely, Joe, and we've seen throughout the race that it's very hard to slow the Corvette down, so getting a good run out of corners will be a better bet than trying to outbrake into a long from a long straight area. So right now, if I'm David DeRoche, I'm thinking I need to just brake a little bit sooner than I have been and try to get on the gas a little bit more cleanly. because that's going to be the only way you're going to pass
I'm
Manuel
sorry,
Sanchez.
he takes a look on the inside of the hairpin, DeRoche does, and he wasn't quite close enough. Now they're coming back down the backstretch once again. He's a little bit closer, but I don't think DeRoche had a good enough exit. He is just on the bumper. He's closer this time, though. He might have the draft. Just a side note, as these guys scream towards, oh, I'm sorry, no, I'm going to stick with this battle, as now DeRoche takes a look on the inside, but he's still pretty far back there, and he's not going to be able to go side by side through the final chicane. There's still line of start.
Whoa, big spin from David DeRoche. Huge spin coming over the bumps in the chicane. He has just lost a ton of time. And I don't know if he hit the wall, but that is going to cost him a chance for the lead. Huge mistake from David DeRoche.
And he's able to get turned around. He did run into the wall, and just as that happens, Tom Valentini pits from the lead in the C3 class with only 6 minutes left on the clock. Also, a side note, James Wyckoff did get a black flag for dive bomb on lap 53. Everything is going on at once here. Where is João Cardojo in all of this, Dusty?
Well, João Cardojo is now back into the lead, and he has a pretty comfortable lead currently over Patrick Pitchler. So we're really gonna have to see, is he gonna make another pit before the pit stop before the end of this race? I'm not sure. Sometimes I kind of wonder if he's listening to the broadcast as we're talking. Just as soon as I said that he was running about 2 seconds slower than Patrick Pitchler, he picked up the pace for about 3 laps and suddenly was running about a second faster than Patrick Pitchler and ticked off 3 133.9s all 3 laps within about 1/100th of a second of each other. So yeah, I think he was probably playing it conservatively, and then he decided, okay, I've got enough gas to make it, and then just widened that gap back up again. So if he doesn't have to make another pit stop, I think he's got this one in the bag.
We've only got about 4 minutes left on the clock for these guys, so now it's really ticking down, and it's going to come down to this. It's sad to see that David DeRoche was not able to hold it together because he was really threatening on Sanchez. Meanwhile, Sanchez, Brian, we have to give him credit because cool under pressure doesn't even begin to describe that sort of run, but although it's not over yet.
Yeah, it's not over yet, but I don't see David coming back from him. That's gotta hurt his confidence big time. Knowing that he's as fast as he is, he didn't get a good run, and then he goes and makes a mistake that critical with so little time left in the race. That's really gotta just kind of smash every hope and witty you have at that point.
And this is what separates the men from the boys, so to speak here, Brian, because David DeRoche, remember, has not won a race yet. This was his best opportunity, and the race winners are the ones that make it through without those mistakes. I think between however it was that DeRoche initially lost the lead, and then this contact with the wall, the spin that he had, this just goes to show that, you know, he's got a ways to go before he can win a race in this series.
Yeah, that kind of proved my point, though. The Corvette's not very good under heavy braking. We've seen throughout the season. Think back to Watkins Glen with Fruit Manzar when he tried to outbrake into the final corner. He went very sideways. And then today, coming into this chicane, David DeRoche had a huge run, and he tried to outbrake Manuel Sanchez, but he was unable to get enough turn in, and that bump just smashed his car all the way around. So Manuel Sanchez, like you said, he's shown his veteran skill and the fact that he deserves to be where he is in the point standing, and he is just very cool under pressure. Definitely shows his character off quite a bit today.
Yeah, and we're now ticking down to the final moments here. I believe we have about 2 or 3 minutes left on the clock. We will tell you when the white flag is out. Once again, just to give you an update, Robert Tinsey leading C1. Iker Estefania is sitting about 24 seconds back in second, with Jacob Groth 45 seconds back in third in the C1 class. Meanwhile, Manuel Sanchez is leading with David DeRoche now farther behind in second after a spin, and Richard Albert sitting in third. João Cardojo is currently leading, but we're not sure if he can make it on his fuel. Patrick Pitchler is in second in C3, and Tom Valentini is in third. Both those guys rushing to try and run down the leader, but they're running out of time. And we've got now about 2.5 minutes left, I believe. I'm sorry, we don't have quite an accurate reading, unfortunately, with our picture being gone, and the iRacing timing is not completely entirely accurate. It starts when the pace car takes off instead of crossing the line, so it's just a minute or two off of what the actual time is, but we should get the white flag announcement from the drivers once they receive it from the tower. In the meantime, it looks like things are starting to level out. We're starting to get a picture of who is going to be where, but the one that has not is whether or not João Cardoso can make it to the end. His pace seems to imply that he can make it, but this could be just a do-or-die time, Dusty, and he's just picking it up because he knows that that either he's got to push and try and hope that he can make it to the end, or else.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if he was going to be, sorry, yeah, I mean, if he was concerned that he wasn't going to make it to the end, he wouldn't be running the laps that he's currently running. He's currently running pretty quick laps right here, so I imagine that he's pretty much feels like he's got this one in the bag, as close as we are to the white flag. Now, you know, I don't know, maybe he's planning on squeezing out a pit stop on the last lap somehow. I mean, can he just finish the race by crossing the checker in the pits?
It's a good question. We'll find out soon because Robert Tinsley just got the white flag. He is now heading towards turn 3 and 4. So keep us abreast, Dusty. If Cardoso slows, please butt in. But in the meantime, Robert Tinsley, who we haven't really talked about hardly at all, besides mentioning that he's leading, is now taking his final lap. He's coming up on the second and third place cars of Tom Valentini and Patrick Pitchler. And I think he's just going to hold station with such, nearly a half-minute gap back to second place of Iker Estefania. Robert Tinsley, who's been running pretty good races and been getting podiums here and there since he joined the series at Watkins Glen a few races ago. This is the opportunity he's been needing now that Jalvaz has not shown up and just absolutely grabbed it with both hands, Daniel, and is finally going to take a win here, it looks like.
Finally, he's been waiting a while. He's got a few podiums. Closest he's been, I reckon, to winning was Sebring when he put Joao under a bit of pressure in the first stint. Now he's coming up, just rolling up behind the two pure racing McLarens of Patrick Pitchler and Tom Valentini. And he'll take the win.
And yeah, he's now coming up to the final chicane. He is not pushing these guys at all. He knows that they've got a battle going on for that second and third place, and he is going to take the checkered flag as they now come to the line, and he weaves in celebration, knowing that he's finally got it in his hands. Robert Tinsley wins at Montreal after 90 minutes. Meanwhile, where is Manuel Sanchez? He is a little ways off, and João Cardoso is just behind him, but the battle that we're watching is Patrick Pitchler and Tom Valentini for second and third.
Yeah, it looks like Manuel Sanchez is going to be coming around to the hairpin shortly, so all he's going to need left is the back straight.
Oh, no!
And
they came together.
No, they came together. They both got into the wall. Patrick and Pitchler and Tom Valentini are both stopped on the track, limping along now.
And I don't think that was a pass attempt. It looks like Pitchler just took too much curb into 3, and his teammate got beside him. Pitchler ran into the wall and then bounced back into his teammate. They're both continuing on, but where is Allmensberger in all this? Allmensberger isn't even on the track. He won't be able to make up the position. He was a lap down. But Sanchez is going to take first in the C2 class as he crosses the line now. So the win goes to Manuel Sanchez after 90 minutes at Montreal in the C2 class. Meanwhile, João Cardoso looks like he's going to be able to easily take this win.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think he had it in the bag anyways. Funny that with a collision like that on the last lap, not actually changing any of the positions, as long as these guys can limp the cars around, Pitchler is having some trouble just keeping it straight. Hopefully he doesn't get in anybody's way there, but Cardoso has taken the win.
And he has won all but one race, and in that one race, he did not show up. That was 2 weeks ago at Mosport, but he does it again impressively. Meanwhile, Patrick Pitchler, as you mentioned, still limping around. Tom Valentini has got the slightly better car and is going to be able to take second place as now he comes to the line. We've got a few guys finishing up as soon as we get everybody across the line, which I think the last one is probably going to be Pitchler here, whose car is struggling just to make it to the end after what turned out to be an exciting little last lap here for him in that pure racing car. And he's actually got Jacob Groth, who's finished, who's kind of getting in his way. In fact, both HPDs are now heading into the pits is now Pichler is coming to the line and finishing his race, and that completes the field as everybody has now finished the 90 minutes around here at Montreal. We are going to go to a very quick break, and then we'll give you the unofficial results, and we'll wrap up here. Welcome back. We just saw we listened to an interesting race at Montreal after 90 minutes for the 8th round of the EnduroPro series here. But after all was said and done, our winner in the C1 class and overall was Robert Tinsey, running a dominant race with Iker Estefania following him home in second. and Jacob Groth finishing third. Sadly, Lars Conrad was looking likely for a podium, but suffered from a black flag, was not able to make it to the end in the top three. Meanwhile, in C2, Manuel Sanchez was able to win after intense pressure from David DeRoche, who led for most of the race and then dropped back mysteriously and suffered from a mistake late in the race after challenging for the lead once again. Richard Albert came home third among those C2 drivers. Then in C3, João Cardojo does it again, still running a perfect record for every race he has entered this year in the EnduroPro series by winning in the C3 class. And this time it was done on fuel yet again. Tom Valentini came home in second, also running on fuel, but had to make 2 stops. So did Patrick Pitchler. But the teammates ran into each other at the end, changing the outcome. I'm sure there'll be a few words, maybe some apologies between those two, since it wasn't really an aggressive attempt that set it off between them. Andreas Allmansberger came home behind them in fourth. And that is our top 3 in each class. Meanwhile, we also have our Dayco Designs drive over the race, and that is by Manuel Sanchez for withstanding intense pressure and coming home with a win here in C2. We want to thank a few people before we head off. Obviously, thanks to SimSeats and Dayco Design, the 2 sponsors of the EnduroPro series. Also, thanks to Mario Beaudry and Marc-Andre Povin, our organizers of this league. Thanks to the software and hardware that we use, iRacing.com, XSplit, Twitch TV, Audio-Technica, and Avermedia. Thanks to the team today. We had some technical difficulties, but we all worked our way through it. Dusty, Brian, Daniel, and Giancarlo. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, you can find it at www.globalsimracingchannel.com, along with archived races and race highlights. We're also on Twitter at GSR Channel and Facebook at /GlobalSimRacingChannel. Thanks go out to Doug Beard, who creates all of the camera sets for the Global Sim Racing channel. He puts in a lot of hard work out there. Also, a special thank you to Eric Ekholm, whose music is not only found here on GSRC, but in TV commercials, movie trailers, iTunes, and Spotify. If you like our music, tell Eric where you heard it at ericekholm.com. Additional thanks to Casey Lalonde, who also provides us with the music for our broadcasts. You can find more of his music at caseylalonde.bandcamp.com. Our next race for the EnduroPro Series will be Saturday, May 17th at 10:45 a.m. Eastern. That'll be at Sonoma, another hard-to-pass track. Our next broadcast, however, will be the VSRA race at Spa, Sunday, May 11th at 9 p.m. Eastern. Then the ASRS will be at Charlotte on Wednesday, May 14th at 9 p.m. Eastern. Also, the CESCS will be Lime Rock Park at Saturday, May 17th at 10:30 p.m. UTC. Then the Piston Cup heads to Homestead Sunday, May 18th, at 6:45 p.m. UTC. Then the Northwest Majors have their Indy 500 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Sunday, May 25th at 6 p.m. Pacific. And finally, the iSuperspeedway Series will be at Talladega Friday, May 30th at 10 p.m. Eastern. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and I'll see you on the track.